This is Here's What I Learned, a podcast that explores the lessons found in business and life. I'm your host, Jackie Hayes, a business consultant and strategist, a reader, homesteader, and superhero fan. In this show, I talk with coaches and service providers. We explore the lessons they have learned running an online business, embracing feminist business practices, rejecting hustle culture, and embracing their roles as CEOs. In today's episode, I'm talking with TaVona Denise about what we're unlearning in life and business. We also explore our common love of launching. It's from TaVona that I learned to look at launches as throwing a party. TaVona helps coaches and online service providers redesign their businesses so that they can have the lifestyle and impact they started their business for. Let's welcome TaVona. Okay, I am so excited to have you here today because anytime we have a conversation, I have so much fun. So I can't wait to share our conversations with the rest of the world. Before we dive in, though, I have a question I ask all my guests, and that is, what is something that you are learning or learning about lately?
Ooh, well, one of the things that I've been learning here lately is the whole world of human design. You and I have talked about it a little bit, but I think really I'm unlearning something that I think is important to share. I'm unlearning that there is one specific way to do anything. I'm unlearning that I have to show up any way other than how I want to and when I want to and in the moment and still be able to have the life and business that I want. And I think it's more of a unlearning because I'm unlearning to work hard for the things that I want in my life.
Yeah, you're saying the unlearning there, and I think that's actually more true about my exploration of human design than learning things, because it's given me permission to say, no, I'm not designed the way the society wants me to focus or be in this way, or I'm designed to work better in this way. So I'm a manifesting generator. It's perfectly okay for me to have multi-passionate about a lot of things and pivot often and almost instantaneously. And it's okay for me to move fast as long as I remember that not everybody else is going to move as fast as me. And so unlearning all the things that were kind of forced into me when I was in corporate of like how to function has been quite a process. What about you? What are some of the more specific things that you have been unlearning?
I have been unlearning that time equals money. Time does not equal money at all. Like I have made so much money in such a quick time that it would make a person's head spin. And I'm unlearning that I don't always have to work so daggone hard for the money that I make. Like, I think those are two things that I'm really, really unlearning. And sometimes I forget. And then I get back into the little struggle and the hustle bus and all of the struggle bus and the hustle. But I'm like, it feels so good when I remember, because like I was coaching somebody earlier today. And they were saying to me, well, my account is lower than I like it to be. And so when I'm in that place, I get into fight and flight or fright, and she freezes and she's not able to do anything, or she does a lot of starting and stopping. And so she was associating that with the amount of money in her account. And I was like, but those two are not associated. Like your ability to move with how much money is in your account, or your ability to feel joy or happiness or contentment or be creative just because of the dollar amount in your account. And she was like, well, I sort of get it intellectually, but I don't really. So I said, but there's been times in your life where you've had $0 in your account, where you've been creative and happy and playful and joyous. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, when you were a kid, you didn't even have an account. You didn't even know how to make money, and yet you still had those things available to you. So it's not the amount of money that's in your account. It's what we think about the amount of money. It's the fear that we have around it, and that we won't be taken care of, and that there won't be food on the table, and it blah, blah, blah. But if we can connect to a time when we literally did not have accounts, did not have money, and yet we were still creative and happy. So for me, in me coaching her, it was another unlearning moment where I learned, oh yeah, money and my emotions are not joined at the hip.
Yeah. We all have so many of these things because we're, like you said, you have to remind yourself of them because we're swimming in a soup of so many other messages from, day one of our life until however old we are now. And so it is like a constant like reminder of like, no, this is not necessarily how it is. How do you keep those things in your fourth thoughts? So when you forget, how do you make sure that you remember those things you're unlearning?
Well, a few things. One of them is like having a regular practice of meditation or journaling. I don't do either one consistently. I try to do one or the other. And then other one is paying attention to how I feel. So if I find myself in too many days of a little bit of grumpy mood or anxiety or fear or frustration or stressed out, that's my alarm. That's my alert to check in with myself. Maybe two, if I look at my journal, maybe 3, 4, 5 days have passed since I last checked in with myself and say, okay, I'm not feeling like myself. I'm just not feeling like myself. That when I check in, I'm like, okay, all of this stuff, that soup that you were talking about is running around in my head. And yeah, I'm going to toss that soup out because I don't like the way that tastes.
I just had a day yesterday where it was a content planning day, and I woke up and I did a couple of things around the house, and then I was like, there is like not a single inspired thought in my head today. Not a single one. I'm just kind of tapped out. Meh. And I thought, okay, well, I could force myself to try and create content, which will turn out to be crap. Let's be honest on this. Or I could say, what can I do today? And I'm like, I'm in one of those menial tasks, clean up the back end of business, kind of like I'm capable of doing that. I'm inspired for my clients. Like creating for my clients stuff was inspiring. That was fine, but for my own stuff, no. So I was like, I'm just gonna let myself have that day. Like I can move content creation to another day. My business is not going to implode because I didn't create content today. And I'm going to do the menial stuff today or the back end stuff, and then just let myself be. And then this morning, guess what? All kinds of inspired content came out. So I think that lesson of just learning to listen to yourself and then do what your body and your mind and your emotions need from you is such an important lesson.
Maybe this happens to you sometimes too, but I can totally identify with the menial task because depending on the project and I don't know, maybe the enormity of it or something, like I must wash the dishes and make sure everything, like I make my bed as soon as I get up every morning. So that's not a thing, but like the dishes have to be washed, like the house has to be clean before I do a big project. So I can totally identify with that.
It's that mental clutter. If your environment is cluttered, then you might be mentally cluttered as well. If you're, some people are like, I love all the things everywhere. And I'm like, no, everything needs to be like clear and spacious around me for my brain to feel clear and spacious.
I can agree with that.
So you and I actually first got connected because of our love of launches, which is kind of a strange thing when you listen to people talk about launches when we're like, we love launches. So how did you get into launching and launch strategy and launch coaching and helping people with their launches?
Well, I think it came from a friend of mine. Well, I have to back up because I used to have an alternative fitness events company when I lived in Atlanta. And I did that for quite a while. I coordinated these events where women in the area could go to these boutique fitness studios and boutique gyms to learn how to do other ways of moving other than lifting weights and running. And so I was hosting these events all the time. That was pre my coaching business. So a few years in my coaching business, I was telling a friend of mine, I'm like, I am not a marketer. I am not a marketer. I'm not a marketer. And he said, can you please stop saying that? Because you were an amazing promoter of events. They are literally the same thing. You just called it promoting and now it's marketing. It's the same thing. And so I was like, oh, Yeah, maybe you're right. And so from that moment on, I started to think about launching as having an event, aka having a party, throwing a party. One, I know how to do that. And when I tell myself, or when anybody else tells themselves they know how to do something, instantly their love or their like or their affinity for it increases because we want to do things that we feel like we know how to do and we're good at. So since I already told myself that I knew how to throw a party, then I started to increase my love of launching. And every time I thought about throwing a party, it became something that I wanted to do. For me, I'm an extrovert. Some people who are introverts are like, that sounds like the worst idea ever. And so for my introverted clients, I say, what about a dinner party where you have 3, 4, 6, maybe 8 close companions? And they're like, oh, wait a minute, I can do that. I want to do that. Right. So most of us have thrown a party in our lives. If we choose the right setting, the right people, the right amount, that kind of thing, we sometimes want to throw these parties. And so that was really the shift between one, realizing actually I am a marketer and it's something that I love to do. It's something that I want to do when I do it in a way that feels good to me. It's something that when we want to do it's a win-win. It's a win for the attendees. It's a win for us. Like they get to have a great time. We get to put on a great event. So that's really how I got into the launch space and thinking about it. When I realized that, I was like, oh, I can do this and I can help other people with it. It's just really for me, as you can tell, it's really a lot about the mindset. I mean, for me, it starts there and how we think about things and how we feel about things. And when we can make that shift first, then we're more open to explore the options and the possibilities around the strategy that we select. Mm-hmm. And then add in the human design and or the unlearning that you can do however the heck you want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I completely agree. If somebody comes to me and wants to work on their launch, but they are stuck in launches are awful and there's no way of making them good, there's no amount of strategy or planning I can do that is going to actually make your launch successful. Even if you have a high enrollment and you hit your goal numbers, your launch isn't still going to be successful because it's still going to be awful for you. It's still going to be a burdensome experience that you never want to do again. And I want to make sure that my clients at the end of a launch are like, this was fun. I can't wait to do it again. Because I do think that that is possible. Because, like you said, if you're approaching it like you're throwing a party for people that you really want to serve or love or want to spend time with, then why wouldn't it be fun? So
why wouldn't it be fun? And to your point about like, even if you make all of the money, it's not technically successful because you feel awful. And I had a client come to me once after having an $80,000 launch, and she couldn't get herself to launch again because it was just an awful experience. And so when I talk to people about it in launch therapy or in my launch clinic, we're talking about the 4 phases of business or launching, one of them being the drought, because we know people who have done a launch and they got crickets. The next one being the trickle, where they do the launch and they get a few people, or it's very inconsistent up and down. And then we have the flood, which is what you were talking about, where they have the look of success. They got the people, they got the clients, and they've got the money, and it's just exhausting on the back end. And then where we're trying to help people get to is the flow, where it feels good, it's fun, it's simple. They can do it with their eye, them or their team can do it with their eyes closed almost. It just is something that they look forward to. And I think you and I are singing in the same choir around it can be simple, it can be fun, and it doesn't have to be dreadful.
And back to the human design too, I think a lot of people create launches based off of what they see their mentors do or the 7-figure folks who have an enormous team behind them that you don't see what the team is actually doing. And so they're like, well, so-and-so is doing all of these things. This must be what a launch is. I've got to do all of these things. And there is a saying about keeping it simple. And it's really true when it comes to your launch. You do not need to add all the bells and whistles, especially if it's your first couple of launches with the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I was just doing a launch audit with somebody earlier today, and she had a very, very small, intimate launch. And what I look at with people are what I call the 5 failure points of a launch when I'm doing an audit with them. Because a lot of times, and I'm sure you've seen this too, Jackie, is that people are not giving themselves credit for what went well during the launch. So say they have a launch, they had a number, or maybe they didn't even have a goal. And that's problem number one. You didn't have a goal. Or maybe they had a goal and they didn't hit the goal and like, oh, launches suck. This was terrible. I didn't hit my goal. I suck and business sucks and I'm never going to make it. And I should never do a launch again because I didn't hit my goal the first time. All of this stuff. And I'm like, but wait a minute, hold on. Let's take a look at it. So as I was doing her launch audit, I walked her through those 5 points and I was like, oh my goodness, your numbers percentage wise, ratio wise actually looks way better than the industry standard. So what that tells me is that we just need more people on the front end to see it, to sign up. She got people to show up once they signed up, about a 50% show up rate, which is awesome. And then all of those people 100% stayed to the end when she stayed beyond the part where she made the offer. They stayed to the very end. And she got 50% of those people to take her up on the offer. So I'm like, hey, that's freaking amazing. However, she just didn't have a big enough number of people to see it in the first place. So then for me, the next focus is like, okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. All of this stuff looks great. We're going to make some minor tweaks to the presentation, the sales, whatever. You just get to put most of your eggs in getting people to show up this next time. The rest of it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's 2 things there. When you set your goals for a launch, don't just set a revenue goal, but think of like email conversion rates, how many people you talk to in DMs, how many people show up to your webinar live. Those are all kinds of things that you can use as goals as well, so that you're not falling for this because you didn't hit a revenue goal issue. Because there's so many things. I had a client who had a 100% conversion rate on a live Q&A. There wasn't a lot of people in the Q&A, but it was a 100% conversion rate. So if you can get more people into the Q&A and keep doing what you're doing, look at the numbers that you're going to have. I think the other thing with that is an unrealistic expectation when people don't understand what the industry standard is on conversion, which is 1 to 2%. So if you have a list of 100 people, and you've got a goal of having 50 people in your group, that's a huge conversion rate and probably not likely. So being a little bit more realistic, that doesn't mean that you are going to have only a 1 or 2% conversion rate, but don't plan on 50 people in your group if you only have 100 people in your following.
Exactly. Or if you're not willing to go out into other people's communities and leverage their following as well. So there are ways that we can bolster that if you're only starting with a small list. But again, it's like you said, it's numbers. It's also where the people are in the process. Are they cold, like brand new to you? Or are they warm? They've been following you for a while, just waiting for you to make an offer or make a compelling offer or whatever. So like, it's so many different little intricacies that go into that people are not taking into account, where someone like you or I can come in and say, this is the thing right here, or focus here, or pay attention here, or put more effort into this place, and it'll take off in no time. And then just like you said, just giving it time, just giving yourself time to build momentum, because what I find is that people will have a result that they don't expect or that they don't want or whatever. And they're like, launch is not for me, or this offer or this program is not for me, or webinars are not for me. And then they change too many big components. Either they completely change the offer, they completely change the event, like they change it from a webinar to a multi-day challenge, or they change too many things. And so I tell people to go with the souls, yes, SOUL, the souls, yes, because oftentimes when we're in creation and excitement mode and we're like, oh, this is going to be so awesome, the people are going to love it. I've had all of these clients that keep coming to me with the same problem, so it'll be easier for me to deliver it in a group. And you know all of the reasons why you came up with the idea in the first place. That's what I call the souls, yes. But so often when the rubber meets the road and we've actually put our baby out into the world and say, do you like my baby that I actually created for you? And we're a little clunky in the beginning on explaining it or explaining how it works or why, who should come and why they should come and not put it off and all of that. And we don't, like, we just toss the whole thing out rather than learning how to talk up the program.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And I think too, from one launch to the next, as you were saying, changing a lot of things makes it really hard to figure out what thing actually worked and didn't work. So if you go from launch, your very first launch, you go to your second launch, which we're going to talk about here shortly. I think about that second launch, the sequel is never as good as the first book type thing. And then you're like, okay, well, that didn't go as well as the first launch. And so you change 5 things for your third launch, but which of the things actually was the thing that worked? Was it all 5 things that you changed? Was it only one of those things? So changing all the things makes it really hard to nail down what it is that actually is working in your launch and what is not working.
Mm-hmm. And so when we see the bigger names, the big name groups, the 7 figures, so-and-sos, where you see they have this big launch year after year, like, I really wish there was how they have the Wayback Machine where you can go and find the old versions of people's websites. I wish there was a Wayback Machine for people's launches where they can go back and see, because I've been a support coach on the back end of multi 7-figure businesses, and I get to see where they were. Like, I knew them way back when. And what they are doing now at multiple 7 figures is not what they were doing at 6 figures. And so, just like you were saying before, people get caught up in the idea of, oh, I see so-and-so doing this now, but you don't realize that they've been stacking. They've been building momentum and stacking skills and stacking support and stacking strategies on top of where they started. And so, like, I think if you could just think, what is the most simple way I can achieve the goal that I want? Going back to the goal is first. And what sounds like fun? Those are my 2 favorite questions to ask. According to the goal, what's the simplest way I could achieve this? And what sounds like fun? Those 2 need to be aligned, because it can't be simple, but not fun. And it can't be fun, but not simple. I mean, I guess it could, but we're trying to make life easier, not harder. So we have that. That's what I would offer people. Like, if my one piece of advice, simple plus fun equals massive success on all levels. And that's a hard thing to ask of people, because we're so used to working hard. We're so used to seeing complicated. Complicated, when it's been stacked and built up over time, was simple. It was like simple. And then we added a thing and added a thing and added a thing. So it looks complex, but it started off simple. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would offer. But to your point about, like, the sequel's never as good as the first one. So I came up with this concept called the sophomore curse. And I don't know if you've heard of this, Jackie, but it's a music concept where people have a sensational hit out the gate as a new artist, and then they crash and burn. They call it the sophomore curse. And so I've seen this time and time again with entrepreneurs. Because all of the stars aligned, and there's some very specific reasons why this happens, but they have a sensational first launch, and then the second one tanks. And I call it the sophomore curse because it's the second one. And so what I found with people, and I really, really encourage people, even if the sophomore curse happens to you, is to do at least 3 launches. If you can get yourself, and you see this in music too, if that person can pick themselves back up and get past that second album, in this case, the second launch, once they get past 3, there's no stopping them. Yeah. There is no stopping them. So why does the sophomore curse happen? A lot of times it's 2 things. Either your list was super warm, meaning people they really knew you well. They had been following you for a while. They were just waiting for you to put something out there that they could get on board with, and that you had a lot of confidence and you got on board with. So you get a lot of people are buying on the first time, sometimes based off of energy alone. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, we oftentimes get in our heads. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to repeat that? Anytime we say stuff like that, usually the answer comes back, no, you're not going to be able to repeat that. That was a fluke. And then we prove that thought true. And so also what happens sometimes on that second launch is, remember I said the first one, everybody was warmed up. They may have been following you for weeks, months, years. And the second one, if you don't give yourself enough time in between launches or put in the effort to bring in some new people, then they are not primed and ready for that second one. So it looks like, oh, I suck. It's a fluke, blah, blah, blah. But it's just saying you need more time. So those people that come in for the second launch, if you do the third one, they will have had time. Assuming that you don't freak out, drop everything, stop nurturing people, stop sending emails, right? They will have been primed for the next one, because I tell people every launch is preparing people for the next one. So back to what you were saying, Jackie, about our expectations, not just of the result, but our expectation of how many people we expect to sign up. Nobody, let me not say that way. 100% of people who encounter you in your work for the first time are not going to sign up just because you asked them to. It's just not going to happen. But it's just the nature of the beast, right? So if you give them time and you keep showing them that you will show up, and you keep talking about your thing from different angles, they'll finally say, okay, now I got it. Or, oh, she or he's been showing up for a while. Okay, I can trust them. Now I feel safe to work with them. So that's why I tell people all the time, at least 3, at a minimum of 3, really before you make major changes to the type of launch that you do, major changes to the offer, anything like that.
I know one of the things you talk about, or you and I have at least talked about, is that sometimes that sophomore curse happens because of something that actually happened in the delivery of the group in the first round. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you remember that. Yeah. So sometimes the sophomore curse happens because we do an amazing job. We get the people in, they sign up, and then again, sophomore curse. So that means that this is only the second time we're delivering it in this way. And sometimes we have rowdy people in the program. And sometimes that's because our energy might have been off. We might have been in a lack mentality. We might have been in scarcity. We may have let people in that we had a little inkling in our gut, like, I don't know if they're ready or they're the right person, or something's not gelling right, and we let them in. Sometimes it's just that we don't have the skill because it's only our first time of delivering. So if something happens, we are not quite able to manage the group, especially if you are moving from one-on-one coaching to group coaching. The way you coach in a one-on-one setting is very different than how you manage multiple human beings who have thoughts and feelings and history and filters that they look at the world through. So, and our delivery of that first time, we are giving our best guesstimate of how things will go and how our frameworks will work on a group, which is different than one-on-one, where we can tweak it and we can see what they're doing, what they're not doing, because they're showing up. So if all of that's happening and somebody feels like, people are humans. When they start being human, we'll just say it like that. When people start being human, if we don't know how to handle it, we may retreat into ourselves. And so when it's time to do the second launch, we may have, and this is a protective mechanism that the body, the nervous system does to protect us. Consciously, we may be saying, I want blank dollar amount, or I want blank number of clients. And unconsciously or subconsciously, our nervous system is geared to look for and help us avoid danger. So if it's saying, oh, I don't want that situation that happened with Sally the last time, we need to avoid that at all costs. If you do sales calls for your launch, if anyone if you even think that they might be like Sally, you're going to start telling people, you're going to butcher the sales call because you are actively, unconsciously pushing them away because you're trying to avoid danger, which is an unruly client.
So I want to pivot the conversation away from launches to actually talk about business pivots, because you have had one recently, which is kind of like a repivot sort of a situation. Can you talk about
returning to the roots of sorts?
There you go. Can you talk about that process for yourself and how that came to be?
Yeah. I mean, so I started out, I'm a physical therapist by training. I did that for 19 years. And I went from, and I've had multiple pivots. So it's kind of interesting. We're talking about manifesting generators. People think I'm a manager. I am not. I am a generator who presents like a manager but I think it's because I like to learn. So I like to learn a lot of things and then bring it to the people. So I was doing burnout coaching for healthcare professionals. And then I decided, because I've been an entrepreneur since 2001, I wanted to help those who were burned out figure out how to get out of the employee status to entrepreneur. So that's how I got into coaching people in healthcare to start their business. And as I was doing that work, like, if we think about levels, right? I started wanting to work with I wanted to have more advanced business conversations. And so that's kind of how I went into the launching space strictly for coaches. And while I love that stuff, you can even go on my website now. It's called the Launch Clinic. I have a program called Launch Therapy. I was a physical therapist. It was always still there. And I was always still doing the national conferences, speaking there. So like I couldn't escape. I'm like, every time I try to escape, they're calling me back. It's like, okay, all right, God in the universe, what are you trying to tell me here? Because it's like can't get escape velocity. But so then after I haven't touched a patient in 3 years. So I'm thinking, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? I go kind of introspective around my birthday, which is in November. And I thought to myself, about 40% of my clients are still in healthcare. They keep coming to ask me to speak in these different places, podcasts, articles, all of this stuff. Maybe I'm supposed to be doing this work, taking all of the things that I've learned and help this unique set of people. Also, because, like I said, I like to learn, there's a lot of information in this brain. And to only put it with launching felt like, in a way, almost felt like cutting off one of my arms. And so it's so interesting to have that return to my roots, because when I talk to people about their niche, which is a big old conversation in and of itself, I tell people you can specialize in a thing or you can specialize in a person or a group of people. And for those of us who tend to be multi-passionate, and those of us who like to learn and experiment and do a number of things because we get bored really easily. That's one of my favorite lines, to say I get bored really easily. It often serves us to specialize in a type of person, because a type of person will have several different types of problems that they will want to solve. And then you can flex your muscles in various ways. And it allows you to keep moving and shifting and not get bored, but also be specific enough so that people can refer people to you. So that you're not like, oh, what's she selling now? She can't keep it together. Like all of the stuff that's in people's heads. We know that it's in our heads and we're afraid of it because we've said it about other people. Mm-hmm. Right. So how do you become specific enough where people can refer to you, but you get to lean into your own intuition and your own genius and your own what you want to do? My personal suggestion is pick a person or group of people. And so for me, it just worked out better to do that rather than staying in the specialty of launching, because I don't lose launching. Entrepreneurs in healthcare have to launch. So we just take it over there. And then I also get to do the other things too.
Yeah, I love that idea. Because while I promote that I do launches, I work with coaches, and then I have other offers in the back end that people may not, I don't put on my webpage that I'm doing, so that I can keep doing different things. Because, oh my goodness, if all I ever did was launches for coaches, my business would last about 6 months and then I'd be on to something else, because I'd be so bored, so incredibly bored.
Yeah, you got to know yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think when we talk about human design, I just love it because it's a simple, easy. Well, you can go down rabbit hole.
Simple and easy.
But when I say simple and easy, okay, because I used to do business strategy and business plans with people, because that's just how my brain works. I'm like, tell me what the goal is, and I'll ask you a million questions and do it. My brain does like a calculator and spit out like what could be the pathway, or here are a couple of pathways. And so that's all I used to do. But I think people, and one of the ways that I did that was with Gallup Strength Finders, DISC personality, like a bunch of different personality tests. But the difference with those tests is you can answer based on how you think you should answer or how you're feeling that day, versus human design is just your birthday, the time. Where were you born? It doesn't ask you any of that stuff, and then it spits out an answer. Now, how to understand the chart, that's where the rabbit hole happens. But it's just like more, so I will say it this way, more objective than subjective.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love human design, because it just gives me a starting point to say, okay, what might be some good starting places for this person? And then we still got to check in, because even you and I know in our human design, we're talking about unlearning things. So it's how we were designed. And then we have all of this stuff caked on top of it, like layers of paint, that we got to peel back and say, well, what part of this is mine and is true to my design? And which part of this was given to me by society, parents, partners, whatever.
Right. And that's like knowing your centers, whether they're defined or open. You know, if they're defined, then you probably weren't influenced too much by society. But if they're wide open, then, oh, wow, you know, this part of how you interact with the world is really influenced by others. But I do think you're right that all of those things where you're doing like a choose A, B, or C, they are there. You can't not filter out the should. I should choose this. It's really hard to do that. But I find that when I look at my human design and then I take and I look at it and compare it to like my Myers-Briggs or my Gallup Strengths or any of those others, there's a commonality there. Like, yes,
totally,
these all things fit. If I look at my human design, which, oh my God, when I read up on all of the things, all the little bits, I'm like, how could you explain a human being more accurately? And then I look at things, I'm like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. You know, when I look at this strength, that ties here to this part of my human design, and this part of my Myers-Briggs ties to this part of my human design. I always laugh. I'm like, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm obviously an INTJ, and I'm obviously all of these things. You know, my sun sign, my rising sign, my moon sign says a lot, and then I put in Manny Jen, and then everybody's like, that explains everything. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we hop off this call today?
Two things just popped in my head when you asked the question. It was just like, know thyself. And as much as possible, remove the shoulds and supposed tos from your life, from your business. That is the work. And that is the most difficult and terrifying work. Because oftentimes it can separate us from the people that are the closest to us. But that is the work. And so it's like, if you're still for whatever reason, addicted to working, do that work and watch everything else fall into place. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy by no stretch. It is not. And I will say, if you are really in this to be an entrepreneur, this is like, unfortunately or fortunately, this is the professional development course you signed up for that you didn't realize that you had signed up for. Because even when we think about goals, to me, the goals are not, I mean, you and I think about goals and hitting goals, but it's not really to hit the goal. It's for the skills, the learnings, the unlearnings, the awareness, the strengths that we build on the way to the goal. I think when we can keep that in perspective, it just makes life so much easier. And it makes it easier for us to hit the goal when obstacles and unexpected things come up. Then we're like, not to drop the goal and not to say, well, I didn't want that anyway, but to just say, oh, maybe this is a skill I'm building. Oh, maybe this is a strength I'm developing.
Okay. Well, where can the audience find you?
All the places at TaVona Denise, mostly Instagram. You can send me a message on a DM on Instagram if you're there. A regular old contact me page on TaVonaDenise.com. And that's TAV as in Victor ONA, Denise, DENISE.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Here's What I Learned. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow and leave a review. Remember, there's always something new to learn. Stay curious and never stop asking.